Welcome back, everybody. It's 20 minutes before 7 on this Monday morning. It's great to be with you. Brand new year, 2020, brand new week. Let's get into it. President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed this weekend to place the country's power crisis, unemployment and land redistribution at the top of the ANC's list of priorities for 2020. Ramaphosa and ANC members met in Kimberley on Saturday to celebrate the party's 108th anniversary. Ramaphosa says government will not allow Eskom to fail and promised to restore the power utility. But let's get a little bit of analysis now. And joining us in studio is political analyst Sandile Swana. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Leah.
Compliments of the new year to you. I'm only allowed to say this on the first day back, because then it starts getting a bit tired. But I liked what you said, 2020, perfect vision. Do you think that that's what the speech was all about on Saturday? Was it a perfect vision?
I don't know. Usually people talk about the perfect vision when you see what is behind you clearly. I think there was a degree of honesty from Cyril Ramaphosa, admitting to the clear and self-evident failings of the African National Congress in itself as a party, as well as the African National Congress as a governing party running the state machinery in South Africa. I think he has realized that sugarcoating things and trying to sweet talk the population into nothing is not helping.
Yeah, and that I think was clear in terms of some of the messages that were brought through, but there was still a sense of optimism, something that the president obviously needs to push forward. Talking to the fact that this is the year of unity, socio-economic renewal and nation building. Nothing really new there, is there?
Yes, it's not new, and I think that there's something that may sound crude, really, if we talk about it. This country has infrastructure that has been developed largely during the apartheid period. I think, for instance, this very SABC building and the campus all around was built by an unwanted apartheid regime. The ANC cannot point to anything comparable to this. The university next door, UJ, which was Rand Afrikaans, was built by the apartheid regime. Wits across the road by the... What has the ANC actually done that is substantial? What they've done is to actually give people grants, these cash grants. Whereas in reality, if Cyril Ramaphosa is to be serious, he needs to be able to say, when we talk about socio-economic development, those 1.3 million people in Soweto need to wake up every morning and be productive and actually do something constructive that is under their own control, family-owned businesses. And Soweto cannot be a storage, for instance, these townships and all of them, a storage of people who come from the rural areas to come to be unemployed in the urban area. So there's a lot that the ANC needs to do in the domains of socio-economic development. And lastly, I think when we talk about unity, and this unity has got various things, including social cohesion between blacks and whites in South Africa. I have to ask myself to say, if we say we want to be united with white people in South Africa, are we saying that we are living a life, the direction that this liberation movement has taken is taking South Africa in the direction of Malawi? Are we saying we want to unite with whites on that journey of making South Africa with Malawi? Are you not creating friction when you invite people to suffering to join you in suffering? I think that the performance of the African National Congress in government has got to increase so that people actually are being lifted up, that we're inviting people to join us in something that is worthwhile, not distraction.
Yeah. Interesting perspectives that you've got there. There really are. I mean, we could go into them a little bit deeper, which we will do as we go along. But the big one that I want to touch on, you talk about infrastructure development, you talk about the growth of an economy, job creation. But when you have possibly one of the biggest failing entities here in South Africa is Eskom. And with that hanging on the brink, nothing of what we're talking about is actually going to be achievable. Now, if we go back to the statement, we didn't hear the president give too much about it. I mean, he just touched on, basically saying that Eskom will be restored. It's too big to let go, to break down. But one thing he emphasized, they are not going to privatize Eskom. That he did say. the whole issue at Eskom. We've seen a lot happening already this year. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, the issue at Eskom, you must remember that when Cyril Ramaphosa was deputy president, this task of turning Eskom around was given to him, to the point that even this Jabu Mabuza was appointed by Cyril Ramaphosa in January 2018. Now that Jabu Mabuza has now resigned in a very short space of time, so to speak. So I think that Cyril was not prepared to be as specific as he was in December. In December, he promised us that, I think it was from the 17th of December to the 13th of January, there would be no load shedding of any form. He was specific, and that was good. But in that specificity, very soon he was disappointed because he could not fulfill that promise. So I think he tried to be wise this time and be very general and non-specific. But that does not help us. But I want to go into a little bit more detail because, you know, as this crisis worsens, you know, you have to dig deeper and try to see what is it that is going on. I mean, at an earlier date, I looked at the project reports, for instance, of Medupi, and I was amazed to see that in the project plans of Medupi, 0.35 of GDP growth was supposed to come per annum from Medupi. Now, that is a lot. If the World Bank and others are saying our total growth is now going to be 0.9, 0.35 is a lot on an annual basis every year. I'm not even talking about Kusile. So probably you're talking a very large number in terms of GDP growth had those projects been run on time and accordingly. So Cyril Ramaphosa still has a duty to us to say, can those projects, now that they've been over time for so long, can he come up with a plan of 24 months to say each one of these things within 24 months will be in production, full production, with no further queries. We have solid engineers that have come out of UCT, WITS, and other top universities, University of Pretoria, Stellenbosch. They are still within the borders of South Africa. I believe we've got enough brain power and technical know-how within the borders of South Africa to resolve these problems. If Cyril Ramaphosa and the African National Congress want these particular problems to be resolved.
Well, I mean, one would think that that would be what they would do, and they would initiate whatever it is you're talking about. But it's difficult to believe what's being said. I mean, remember, we were told we were not going to have load shedding until today. Today was the day that load shedding was promised by the president himself that it would begin. However, from the beginning of January, we've been seeing load shedding. That, of course, led to the resignation of Jabu Mabuza, saying that, you know, they obviously misled the president and they couldn't keep up the promises. So at the end of the day, what can we believe? I mean, we're hearing about turning things around in 24 months and making things better, bringing independent power producers on board. Everything's going to be okay. South Africans are genuinely worried about power supply. And many worrying from today as industries go back. And the power grid is going to be even more strained than it was over December.
No, South Africans have got very good grounds to be very, very worried in our homes. I mean, it also speaks to our security. When electricity goes off, your alarm system will last for a short moment, and crime is rampant in this country. So there's a lot that hangs on electricity in this country. But when you talk about what can we believe, the issue is that we have to give Cyril Ramaphosa, David Mabuza, and Pravin Gordhan a little bit of breathing space together with Jabu Mabuza. And the breathing space is that these guys in this lifetime have got no chance of understanding what Eskom is about. They've never, I don't know any one of them who ever went to any type of engineering course. They have no chance of understanding. You listen to them talking, you listen to Cyril speaking about the things at Eskom. He calls things by strange names. You listen to Jabu Mabuza using terminologies that are very strange. So these chaps actually physically don't know what is there. So South Africans will have
in the wrong
hope.
hands? Is that what you're saying? We're in the wrong hands right now?
We are in the wrong hands. We are in the wrong hands. You can get into a taxi with a drunk driver, and he is speeding and he is drunk, and then you keep hoping that things will go well. No, you need to stop the taxi and get off the taxi. That is what needs to happen. So right now, that is where we are. Up until mature engineers, senior engineers who exist in this country, who have credible track records. Some of our engineers, they are called internationally to come and help projects and build some of the most complex projects across the world. But those people are not being put on the board of Eskom. They are not being employed as senior engineers inside of Eskom to resolve the issue. So in a short space of time, when I talk short space of time, within 6 months, we can have credible leadership at Eskom because we have enough sufficient talent of South African origin who have developed here over the years.
All right, let's talk to this leadership. So there have been calls to take Eskom away from Pravin Gordhan, Minister Pravin Gordhan, in his portfolio and move it over to energy. Will that help?
I have serious doubt if that is what Cyril is thinking, because I listened to him again. He compared this thing to Singapore, that there's a model that is being used whereby in Singapore they have a company called Temasek, where all the state-owned companies are actually controlled by a company, a management company. Without really, then the ministries like the Minister of Energy simply controls policy, not execution. Execution is left to professionals. That is how it works in Singapore, and it's successful. But the issue that could come up in that particular statement, if he follows through with it, could be that the Department of Public Enterprises, not just about Eskom, the whole department could be closed down.
Sure.
So if Cyril follows through on that and follows the Singapore model. So to take Eskom as it is in the present crisis and give it to Gwede Mantashe, I don't think there's anything better between Gwede Mantashe and Pravin Gordhan relative to the turnaround of Eskom.
Yeah, so it really will not make a difference is what you're saying.
Yes.
What about calls for the entire Eskom board to resign? Follow suit of Jabu Mabuza. Again, will this make a difference? Put different people, perhaps the right people.
Yes, I think there is no question that we need to put the right people in Eskom. There's no question about that. But what worries me around all these SOEs, including this very one, SABC, is that this board is very new. This board that we want to fire now is very new. And Bathabile Dlamini once again hit the nail on the head. He said when we appointed Jabu Mabuza, it was a haphazard decision. Now we want to pile up one haphazard decision on top of another, changing CEOs every 6 months, changing boards every 6 months. I think we need to slow down and accept that we are now stuck in the mud and go through a proper process where credible engineers are put to lead Eskom, and Eskom is actually led by engineers to produce power.
Do you have faith in the new CEO?
Actually, this CEO doesn't fit the profile of the person I would have appointed. I think in South Africa, first of all, I think South Africa over the years has developed a culture of despising our engineers and not giving them enough credit and giving them power to run things in this country. Secondly, I think the current CEO that has been appointed falls in the category of what you would call the gifted amateur. In Britain, this idea was actually developed, and it destroyed the strength of the British state and state-owned enterprises there, whereby you simply appoint a bright guy who doesn't know the subject matter. So you appoint a guy, a general guy, to run hospitals who's never been a doctor. You appoint a guy to run engineering firms like Eskom, who is not an engineer, simply because he's generally bright out there. Yeah. That is what the British, and it is a well-researched topic, with what they call the gifted amateur. I think what we're now doing is to appoint, Brian Mulife was a gifted amateur, this Jabu Mabuza was another gifted amateur. We've appointed another one.
Sure. Well, he's been in there for 7 days. We obviously haven't heard from him. He's probably got the toughest battle on his hands right now, and it'll be interesting once we do hear from him and see exactly what his direction is and what he plans on doing. Just a couple of issues. I mean, we could sit and talk about electricity for the entire show, because I think that's really what everybody is looking towards, and I think it's going to be a very, very tough year for South Africans with regard to that. It already is. But the President has on more than one occasion also spoken about unemployment and economic growth. The year already starting with forecasts for worse economic growth than anticipated from different international organizations, he again reiterated the call for a growing economy. But calling for a growing economy and giving solutions to the growing economy and ways to achieve it are two different things. Are we getting anything? Are we getting things put on the table that are saying, okay, this is what we're going to do to create jobs?
What he said is that, for instance, the fellows who were at the job summits and the investment summit, that he's meeting them regularly, and they are discussing how to get the economy going. And I saw that people like Sipho Pitjana are also meeting.
Yeah.
But what I want to say to you is this. When you want people to invest in an economy, any economy, and create jobs, etc., you say, I've made the economy ready for this. In other words, if you want to make people to open factories, you provide electricity, ready electricity, water, roads, freight, railways, and so on. So if he was saying to us, we already are on track on developing freight infrastructure, and this is where it will be between Middleburg and Richards Bay, and so on and so forth. Those are the things that you do when you want to get an economy ready. You point to physical things where people can come and plug in and actually create jobs.
Yeah, something that we're missing. Those physical things, the direction that we need to move in, and hopefully we will get more of that. I mean, we've got the State of the Nation coming up, we've got the budget coming up. So, I mean, again, these are things that we look towards for the direction of South Africa in what is going to be a very tough year for us. Very quickly, a lot of people talking to the turnout that was on happening on Saturday. Even somebody like Carl Niehaus taking to Twitter, and I mean, I know he's an ANC National Executive Committee member, but other people also saying it didn't look as full as it usually is. The support didn't look like it's there. Can we read anything into that? Should we read anything into it?
You should read a lot into it. The issue here, I mean, in the visits that they were making around the area, the Northern Cape, you could see people saying that I've been living with sewage in my yard, raw sewage in my yard for 20 years. Yeah. So I think there could be a sign of hopelessness that is creeping in. You know, you're talking about a political party that when Nelson Mandela visited PE, there were more than 300,000 people that went to greet him. Today, that stadium, actually, when you Google it, it's about 11,000 capacity, and they could not fill a stadium with an 11,000 capacity. So there is something wrong there.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, some of the sentiments from people saying that they hadn't been to the Northern Cape in a very long time, and they saw what it looked like, and they've seen the streets and how people are living. And again, there's just been a lack of delivery, a lack of investment into communities. And this is something that speaks. It speaks volumes, exactly what you were saying, and people are very concerned about that. The other issue, and one of the things that was quite telling, was the presence of the Ethiopian Prime Minister. I know that there were meetings that were held between the President and our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, the Prime Minister, I beg your pardon. He was there, he was in attendance, he spoke, and he also spoke about, which I found quite interesting, he thanked South Africans for their openness. And yet, when you look at a year that's gone by with regard to xenophobia and Ethiopian citizens being at the brunt of a lot of that, you know, what did you think of that?
I think these are the younger Africans. I mean, the Ethiopian leader, those are the guys who are looking for African unity, who can see a totally different picture of a united Africa going forward. So he's come to lay the ground and to present, to extend hands of friendship and to clarify that we have a long history together with the Ethiopians, including the fact that Nelson Mandela, when he started MK, he was assisted by the Ethiopians and so on and so forth. So that is where that is coming. But what also struck me was that I think we're starting to see more. The EFF was doing the same thing, extending hands to other political parties and even saying they are opening branches of the EFF outside the country. So the ANC is also going beyond the traditional partners that it has had in terms of the MPLA, SWAPO, Frelimo, and ZANU-PF. It's going beyond now to the Prosperity Party, I believe, in Ethiopia, joining hands far beyond our region.
Yeah. Leave it there for now. Sandile, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks so much for bringing us up to speed with some of the events that happened over the weekend and also the situation at Eskom. Sandile Swana, political analyst, talking to us about the ANC January 8th rally. The time now is 7 o'clock. Let's get you